It's 11:47 p.m. on a Sunday. You're lying in bed, phone face up on your chest, and you're doing that thing you promised yourself you'd stop doing. You're doing the math. Again, not the cheerful math, not the I'm doing fine math, the real math. What your 401-K balance actually is right now, what it will be at 65 if you keep contributing exactly what you're contributing, whether that number is actually enough to do anything with. And somewhere between the third calculator tab and the fourth, a number appears that makes your stomach drop a little. Because you've been doing this right. You started early. You're contributing. You're not spending stupidly. You put the money in before you could see it, which is exactly what every certified financial planner told you to do. And still, the projection doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like surviving. Here's the thing. That feeling isn't a math problem. It's a structure problem. And the structure most people use to build wealth, the 401k as the primary vehicle, was not designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to keep you employable. My name is Elena, and I spend way too much time thinking about why people who do everything right still end up in a position where they have to work forever. If you've ever contributed faithfully to a retirement account for a decade and still felt like the finish line keeps moving, subscribe and hit the like button, because that exact feeling is what this video is about. Before we go any further, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing here is financial advice. What I am is someone who has run this math obsessively across dozens of scenarios, and I want to show you one specific comparison that I cannot stop thinking about. One duplex, purchased in your 20s, versus a 401k you contribute to faithfully for 40 years. The outcome is not close, and the reason why is almost never what you think. Let me run you the standard version first, because it's not nothing. A 22-year-old who contributes $500 a month to a 401k starting today, maxing the employer match, invested in a low-cost index fund, will have, by age 65, approximately $1.87 million. That's at a 7% annualized return. That's a real number. That sounds like a win. But let me tell you what that $1.87 million is allowed to do. At 65, the IRS starts requiring you to withdraw from it. The required minimum distributions kick in. Every dollar you pull out is taxed as ordinary income. You can't easily pass it to your children without triggering a tax event. You can't borrow against it without penalties. And if the market is down 30% the year you need to start drawing, your $1.87 million is now $1.31 million, and the sequence of returns risk is eating your retirement from the inside. Sit with that. The 401k is not a wealth vehicle. It is a tax deferral vehicle. That distinction matters more than anyone in a cubicle selling you a benefits package will ever explain. Here's where I need you to stay with me, because the second half of this video is where the math starts doing something genuinely strange. Ryan and Jordan are both 26. Same city, same mid-level marketing jobs, same $72,000 gross salary. Ryan is doing what every financial influencer told him to do. He's contributing 10% of his paycheck to his 401k, getting the full employer match, and investing in a 3-fund portfolio. He has read the books. He is following the plan. Jordan is doing something different. At 27, Jordan scrapes together a $35,000 down payment, a painful, uncomfortable $35,000 that came from 3 years of living below her means, and buys a duplex in a mid-size metro for $175,000. She lives in one unit. She rents the other. From the outside, Jordan looks like she's behind. Ryan is building his retirement. Jordan spent her savings. Ryan's net worth ticks up every paycheck. Jordan has a mortgage and a landlord headache. But here's what's actually happening. When Jordan put $35,000 down on that $175,000 duplex, the bank gave her $140,000 worth of wealth-building capacity she didn't have to earn. That's 5-to-1 leverage, legally, federally insured. Ryan has no leverage. Every dollar in his 401k is a dollar he put in himself, plus market returns on that dollar. He is playing the game with his own chips only. Here's what most people don't realize about leverage in real estate. When the property appreciates, it appreciates on the full value, not just on your down payment. If that duplex goes from $175,000 to $210,000 in 4 years, a 20% increase, roughly in line with historical averages. Jordan didn't make 20% on $175,000. She made $35,000 on a $35,000 investment. That's a 100% return. On her actual cash, let me say that again, 100% return. On her actual out-of-pocket money, in 4 years, while she was also living rent-free. The trap here is that leverage sounds like a word for risky people, Wall Street people. Overextended people, the trap disguises itself as caution. Ryan telling himself he's being responsible, no debt, no risk, is the trap, because he is taking on enormous risk. He's just calling it a retirement account. Jordan's tenant is paying $950 a month. Jordan's full mortgage payment, principal interest, taxes, insurance, is $1,050 a month. Jordan's effective housing cost is $100 a month, not $1,050. 100. Ryan's rent is $1,400 a month. He's not getting that back. Ever. It's gone. Over 5 years, Jordan spends $6,000 on housing. Ryan spends $84,000 on housing. That $78,000 difference doesn't disappear. It exists somewhere. It's in Ryan's apartment building owner's bank account. A study by the National Association of Realtors found that the median net worth of homeowners is approximately 40 times greater than that of renters. Not because homeowners earn more, but because their housing costs build equity for them rather than for someone else. The trap isn't that renting is always wrong. The trap is that the $1,400 Ryan pays every month feels like a cost of living. It is actually a transfer of wealth. It doesn't knock, it just moves in quietly and eats every dollar you give it. Let me show you why this matters at a structural level, not just a numbers level. Every month, Jordan's tenant pays rent. 3 things happen simultaneously. 1, the tenant covers most of Jordan's mortgage, which means Jordan's equity increases by the principal portion of every payment, without Jordan writing a check. 2, the property itself is appreciating, compounding on the full $175,000, not just on Jordan's $35,000 down payment. 3, Jordan is living nearly rent-free, which means the money she would have spent on housing stays in her account, available for her next move. That's 3 compounding forces running in parallel from a single $35,000 decision. Ryan has 1 compounding force: market returns on his monthly contributions. Ryan is playing the game with 1 engine. Jordan is playing it with 3. A Vanguard research study on investor behavior found that the average investor in actively managed funds underperforms the fund itself by approximately 1.5% per year due to timing decisions, buying high, panicking low, moving money at the wrong moment. Real estate has a natural forcing function against this behavior. You can't log into an app at 2 a.m. and panic sell your duplex in 90 seconds. The illiquidity that feels like a disadvantage is often the mechanism that keeps people from destroying their own returns. Here's the finding that rearranges everything, and I want you to really hear this one. Ryan's 401 is tax deferred. He will pay taxes on every dollar he pulls out in retirement at whatever ordinary income tax rate exists in 2055. If tax rates go up, and historically they've had long periods of being significantly higher than today, Ryan's nest egg is smaller than his balance sheet currently suggests. He doesn't know what his $1.87 million is actually worth after taxes. Nobody does. Jordan's duplex has a completely different tax architecture. She can deduct mortgage interest. She can depreciate the structure over 27.5 years, legally writing off a portion of the building's value every single year against her rental income, even if the property is actually going up in value. She can deduct maintenance, insurance, property management, If she sells and rolls the proceeds into a bigger property through a 1031 exchange, she pays zero capital gains taxes at the time of the transaction. The IRS tax code has 76,000 pages. Approximately 60,000 of them exist to benefit people who own real property and operate businesses. The 401(k) is one of the few things in there designed for W-2 employees. It is not the most powerful tool in the code. It is just the most aggressively marketed one. That's not the government's fault. That's a choice. You are allowed to make a different one. In 1974, a 23-year-old woman named Arlene Mayerson bought a small 2-unit property in Oakland, California, with a $9,000 down payment, most of her savings. She lived in one unit, rented the other, and used that cash flow to buy a second property 4 years later. She never made more than $55,000 a year at her day job. She drove a 2001 Honda Civic until it had 240,000 miles on it. When she died in 2019, her estate was appraised at $4.3 million. All of it in real property, none of it in retirement accounts. She is not an anomaly. She is a pattern that repeats across every generation, in every market cycle, for anyone willing to delay the performance of wealth long enough to actually build it. The boring choice isn't the consolation prize, it is the strategy. Let's run the full math. Ryan contributes $500 a month, $6,000 per year, to his 401(k) for 40 years at 7% average annual return. At 65, $1.87 million pre-tax. After taxes on withdrawal at an assumed 22% rate, approximately $1.46 million in actual spending power. No control over timing. No leverage. No income-generating asset. Jordan buys one duplex at 27. Within 7 years, her rental income has paid down $28,000 of principal, and the property has appreciated to $235,000. She refinances, pulls out $60,000 in equity, and uses it as a down payment on a second duplex. She now has 2 properties generating income, 2 tenants paying down her mortgages, 2 depreciating assets offsetting her tax bill. By 45, Jordan owns 4 units across 2 properties, combined net rental income after expenses, $2,200 a month. Her tenants have paid down $190,000 in mortgage principal on her behalf over 18 years. The combined portfolio is worth $780,000. She still has $0 in a traditional retirement account. By 65, the picture is not comparable. Jordan's portfolio, 2 duplexes, held and managed conservatively, is worth $1.9 million at a modest 3% annual appreciation. Her net rental income after expenses and management fees is $5,400 per month, tax-advantaged, inflation-adjusted because rents rise with inflation, passed to her children without a mandatory liquidation event. Ryan has a balance sheet he can't touch without penalty until 59 and a half, taxed on every withdrawal, vulnerable to market timing, and generating nothing until he starts drawing it down. Jordan has an income stream. Ryan has a balance. Before I continue, someone in the comments is already drafting this. Not everyone can afford a down payment. Not everyone wants to be a landlord. The stock market has historically outperformed real estate on a pure returns basis. Those arguments are not wrong. The S&P 500 has averaged approximately 10% annually over the last century, and in pure appreciation terms, a leveraged index fund in a taxable account can compete with real estate. The barrier to entry is real. $35,000 is not nothing, and 3 years of sacrifice to accumulate it is not nothing. And being a landlord involves things that a Vanguard account does not: toilets, tenants, and difficult conversations. But notice what those objections are actually about. They're about comfort. They're about the inconvenience gap between the thing that is sold to you in an HR benefits meeting with a laminated pamphlet and the thing that requires you to learn something, do something, manage something. The counterargument assumes you're choosing between one duplex and a fully maxed 401(k), You're not. You're choosing between one structure for building wealth and another, and the structure where a bank gives you 5-2-1 leverage on a cash-flowing asset with tax advantages built into federal law, and someone else pays down your debt every month, is not the complicated, risky, exotic choice. It is the oldest wealth-building structure in human history. If you're in your 20s and the only wealth-building vehicle you currently have is a 401k, here is the three-step sequence that changes that. Step 1. Contribute to your 401k up to the employer match. Only up to the match. That's free money and you take it. Beyond that, stop. Step 2. Redirect every dollar above the match into a dedicated down payment fund. High-yield savings account. Target 10% down on a duplex, triplex, or small multifamily property in a market where rents cover or nearly cover the mortgage. This is not a 10-year plan. In most mid-size metros, this is a 4-year plan at a savings rate of $700 to $1,000 per month. Step 3. Buy the property, live in one unit, rent the others. This is called house hacking, and it is not a new concept. It is what every generation before the 1980s understood intuitively about housing before the 30-year mortgage and the suburban developer made single-family ownership the default. It was normal to own a property, occupy part of it, and rent the rest. The duplex is not an exotic financial product. It is a house with a door in the middle. You don't need to become a real estate mogul. You don't need a portfolio of 20 doors. One house hack, one property where your tenants subsidize your housing, changes the compound math of your next 40 years more than almost any other single financial decision you will ever make. Some practical constraints worth naming. FHA loans allow you to purchase a multifamily property with as little as 3.5% down if you own or occupy one of the units. On a $175,000 duplex, that is $6,125, not $35,000. There is a specific loan program backed by the federal government designed almost precisely for this use case. Most 26-year-olds with a stable job and a decent credit score qualify. The HR benefits package did not mention this. The laminated 401 pamphlet did not mention this. And yet it has been sitting in the federal tax code available to anyone willing to look. Here is what Jordan discovers at 55 that Ryan doesn't. It is not that she is rich, though she is doing considerably better than average. It is that she has options. When her company announces layoffs, she does not panic, because the $2,200 in monthly rental income means she has a cushion that Ryan, staring at a $401 balance he cannot touch for another 4 years without penalty, does not have. When her daughter needs help with a down payment on her first home, Jordan has equity she can access. When she wants to take 6 months off between jobs to figure out what she actually wants to do, she can. That is what the duplex bought her. Not the money, the margin. Not the balance sheet, the optionality. Not wealth as a number on a screen, but wealth as a set of choices that ordinary people at her income level are not supposed to have. The gap between Ryan at 65 and Jordan at 65 didn't open when they were 65. It didn't even open when Jordan bought the duplex. It opened in the 36 months before the purchase, when Jordan was eating lunch at her desk and Ryan was eating at the spot around the corner. It opened quietly. In 100 small moments across 3 years. You can choose not to play the game of looking wealthy in your 30s, so you can actually be wealthy in your 60s. There is no trophy for the nicest apartment in your building. The only scoreboard that matters is the one nobody can see. If this video rearranged something for you, drop a comment with the one thing you're going to do differently this week. The comments on this channel are genuinely one of the best personal finance communities on this platform, and I read every one. Subscribe if you want the next video the moment it drops, and I'll see you there.